What's up, Denver? I got Derek Marlin back in the studio today after a long absence of doing our deals and no deals flip analysis with Derek. Derek, glad to have you back in the studio, my man.
Chris, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be back after your lovely remodel. This is awesome.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about, I think you said this was the best flip ever, or one of the best flips you've ever done.
It is. This is the most profitable flip we've ever done. So I call this the HGTV flip because it is the best numbers that I've ever done, but it's a cool kind of accumulation story of a bunch of different scenarios coming together. So I thought it'd be interesting for your audience.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to go through the flip on how Derek found it, how he analyzed it, the numbers. It's a finished product that has been sold. So we can go through the whole cycle of it. Talk about the good, talk about the bad, the learning experiences, and apply it back to just doing local flips here in Denver Metro.
Yep.
So, Derek, I jumped the gun here. I'm going to the property first. I know you very well. I know your company Elevation very well, but we have a lot of new listeners as well. So give us a quick background on who you are and what Elevation does, because you guys have a very unique product in the marketplace in doing flips, but also helping people, learn that market as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, the name of my company is Elevation. As we said, we are a boutique real estate investment company based here in Denver. We work kind of all over the Denver metro area, from kind of Loveland and Longmont all the way down to Castle Rock and Parker, and about a 50-mile radius of metro Denver. We call it property redevelopment, but it's essentially fix and flips. We take existing homes and try to make them beautiful. We do not do scrapes. I did one pop top and it was kind of a hot mess, so I got out of that business. And then we do a little bit of wholesaling between investors. Once we hit 5 or 6 projects, we kind of max out with internal capital and kind of time and resources. And so we'd rather just buy and sell between other investors. And then we've got a consulting and training division called the Elevation Academy, where we teach people in a super intensive one-day format every step of our flip system. Or we also have got 2 other things called the partnership flip. And this particular project that we're going to talk about was a partnership flip. So we can dive into that more in the deal analysis. And then we also do one-on-one consulting and teach people how to flip if they want us to really hold their hands through the whole process. And then you and I have talked kind of, offline on this, but I own a sister company called Flow Investments, and we invest in multifamily apartments, and I'm trying to buy self-storage. So kind of more of the income side of things to supplement the active income from Elevation.
Cool. So lots of stuff that Derek's up to. And if you guys are interested in flipping, obviously this podcast is great. Derek's content and systems and class with team is great. Also go back and check out Elevate Your Flip.
Yeah.
And that was a series we did, I think it was last year at this point.
Yep.
But a great starting point for people who want to get into flipping, because that is not our expertise, but that is your expertise, Derek.
Yeah.
So deal or no deal, man, set this up.
Yeah. So this one, our format before was kind of going at deals and people weren't quite sure whether it was or wasn't a deal. So I figured we'll just go straight up deal on this one. And this particular property I'm going to kind of advance through the slides here. This particular property was, as I mentioned before, it's called a partnership flip. And so what that is it's a way to help us either work directly with homeowners or sellers, or let's say somebody owns a rental and they've got just this total pain in the butt property. They want to fix it up and flip it, but they don't have the time or the resources or maybe the knowledge to do it. So what we do is we partner with homeowners. In this particular example, we partnered with a client who was looking to get into flipping. They ended up connecting with kind of more of an individual wholesaler or fellow investor like us. And they said, oh my gosh, I think this is a good deal, because they had actually literally just gone through our academy 3 weeks earlier, but it was a huge house, which we'll talk about here in a second. And they didn't have the expertise to kind of take on this monster property or the funds, because it was a significant rehab. So the client in this example paid for the acquisition of the house. Or again, in other examples, the client has the house. A lot of times, like mom and dad will move into an assisted living facility and adult children say, oh man, I know we can sell this for a bunch of money, but we haven't touched it for 40 years. We then come in and we use our contractors that we've got going on a bunch of projects. I personally fund the rehab and all the materials, so the client's not out of pocket. And then we do a 50-50 profit share on the extra profit that we generate. So this one was a partnership flip. It was in Littleton, Colorado. So I know a lot of people try to work in the super hot areas of Denver. We do as well, but we haven't done as much in the last 2 years in the Highlands and Sloan's Lake and Congress Park areas, because those have seemed to have continued to get bid up in price. We still do a lot in the suburbs. So this is in a southern suburb of Denver in Littleton, Colorado.
So the Highlands, have they gotten very competitive from other investors there? That and just the run up in price?
I think it's both. I think it's the general run up in price and where the market's going. I think that people are also, kind of to your core audience, people are house hacking and being able to overpay compared to what an investor needs to pay to have enough margin and profit for a profitable property, so that they can do their own house hack, or they've got a longer investment timeline than we do. So I kind of get outbid on those types of properties. And not to say that I don't love it too. We just did a property in City Park that was a beautiful 110-year-old home. They are more eclectic. It's more of a passion project. And I think some investors are willing to pay a little more and take a little less return to do kind of a showcase type property. Not to say this one isn't, because it's really, really a cool end product. But I think that's where some of these core Denver areas that are the quote unquote hot areas, we're kind of nerds with our spreadsheet. And so we just go by return with all things being equal. And we've gotten great returns in the suburbs. So that's kind of how it's just kind of shaken out in this particular property.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, you have your business, you know your numbers, and you let the market dictate where that takes you a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because you can't change the market, but you can adapt to the market.
Yeah.
So how did you, so you got this partnership flip with a previous client.
Correct.
Or a previous academy attendee.
Yep.
And he sourced it from a wholesaler, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so how did that process look? I want to get tactical here in the weeds. So he's obviously out there, the client out there getting to flipping.
Yep.
Was obviously talking with you about partnering up and stuff. Like, hey, that deal came across his inbox, I'm assuming.
Correct.
How'd that filter out to you and then getting it under contract?
Yeah, it was one of those scenarios where I was almost mad at myself saying, oh my gosh, how am I not on this person's list to look at these properties? Because theoretically, I would have been out there in a second. I personally live in Centennial, so it was 15 minutes from my house. But yeah, the client took our one-day training academy. This really fantastic now husband and wife couple, both engineers, super smart people, want to get into flipping full time and build their rental portfolio, but have very demanding corporate jobs. So they were out networking with other wholesalers, because when we send people through our classes, we say, hey, you got to pick 2 or 3 areas and try to go really deep and make good inroads from a sourcing perspective. Yep. So they were really out hustling and meeting other investors and other wholesalers. And I kind of just say it in a cheesy fashion, but the skies parted and only 2 people showed up at this showing that the wholesaler had gotten the property under contract. And it was our client and another person. The other person, I don't think, was too terribly organized. And so they had to go back and rerun their numbers. And from the training that we did, our client said, hey, I think this is a really good deal, but can you double check our math? And so he actually FaceTimed me from the property, gave me the address. I ran the numbers through our spreadsheet and just kind of essentially sight unseen. I was like, yeah, we don't know what's going on with the sewer line, but there's monster spread in this property. If you can get it, commit immediately and we'll totally partner with you and again, fund the rehab. And they wanted to learn. So we taught them our system and kind of were in the driver's seat. But so they were on the list, saw the property. I said, it's go, totally green is go on this one. They committed to it and then put down their earnest money. And then we closed roughly 3 weeks later. The client paid for the acquisition of the property. We had our money ready to go for the rehab. And then this was a unique one because the seller was a single or now single woman who had fallen behind on her taxes. The property was in disrepair for a really nice neighborhood in Southwest Littleton, close to the Ken Carroll area. Definitely the biggest eyesore. Everybody else had beautiful, immaculately taken care of homes. And so she kind of needed to sell through a wholesaler. And we can talk about it more in the rest of the episode, but kind of a weird scenario where we rented back for 6 weeks. And she, wouldn't let us back in the property to finalize our budgeting and said she wanted to, if we wanted to come in, she'd give us COVID. And I mean, it was crazy. And so we had to jump through a ton of hoops and wait and build our budget. And then she finally left in February, which is when we started the project.
But she left before the occupancy agreement ran out?
She cut it to within 1 day. I mean, she stayed the full max amount, which is the way we underwrote the deal, and that was okay. But it was funny because, and this is something for your audience that is key, is we get a lot of deals and we do a post-occupancy agreement, which means We close on the property. The seller gets, their money in the bank, whether it's for them to have for everyday life or more importantly, for them to go shopping for another house. And then we give them time to live in the property. And normally we don't charge rent. I think some people try to cover their carrying cost. To me, I just factor that in. But what I do is we charge a kind of a hefty security deposit because people always leave their stuff. Or in this example, she not only left an insane amount of stuff, but she ripped out the stair railing and all this stuff to get furniture out of the basement. And actually kind of weirdly as a grandma trashed the house. And so we, told her, unfortunately, you forfeit the security deposit. And we use those funds as part of our rehab budget.
All right.
Yeah.
And so what's the layout of the house?
Yeah. So the layout of the house is a classic 2-story single family home in Southwest Littleton. It was the biggest house we've ever done. It's just over 5,000 square feet. It was a 7-bedroom, 4-bathroom property. The other cool calling card about this one, and we'll talk more about it kind of in the pros and cons, but it actually has a pool, which most properties in that part of town don't have pools. So we knew when we were kind of trying to factor in the ARV, which for your audience stands for after repair value, or how much can I sell this thing for on the back end, we knew that we ran our comparable sales on not taking a pool into account because it's Colorado and not everybody loves or wants a pool. So I personally didn't. A lot of our deals have metrics of if you have a 2-car garage in your property versus another one that doesn't, you can on average sell for $20,000 to $25,000 more. That's a really specific metric. I had no idea on a pool, so we just underwrote the deal as probably going to be a big benefit. Obviously, in the middle of COVID, we had a lot of people from California moving here, a lot of people from Texas, and we knew a pool was going to be important. And so to me, it was just a nice feature to sell the property. So yeah, big property, basement, 2 stories. But in a weird way, it was actually a very kind of quote unquote cosmetic project because we didn't do a ton of wall moving. We didn't have to finish a basement. It was just this massive house that was just poorly laid out and super, super dated.
Okay. So, we're about to hit on the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can. Actually, let's go. We'll go talk one more thing about. So we talked about the rent back, and then for us, especially in this partnership flip relationship, was we worked with the licensed general contractor. One of the companies that we really enjoy working with. We've done like 10 deals with them because we knew that you needed somebody that had the bandwidth and the physical manpower to get this project done. So yeah, maybe you could have saved some money working with somebody who's doing a lot of the work themselves as a contractor and trying to sub it out. We immediately picked the contractor that we've done business with that has, a 4 or 5 person paint crew, separate flooring companies, separate drywallers that, you'd walk in the house and there's 8 guys doing drywall because it's so much square footage that it was not sensible, in our opinion, to save a little bit of money, but have the project take another month or 2 because we would have missed the prime selling season.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And so now we're going to go through some spreadsheet numbers here.
Yep.
So that will be in the show notes. And also we're going to add some photos later, before
Yes.
and after photos. You said those are pretty dramatic when we
Yes.
talked before we hit record on here.
Yep.
So if you want to see the numbers and also see some photos, check out the blog post and show notes. We'll go from there. And of course, we're going to talk about that and go through what it looks like from how you underwrote it to how it turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got our deal analyzer spreadsheet, which we're happy to share with your audience. And for those that are kind of following visually, the purchase price was $485,000. And then the renovation budget it ended up being $232,000. I underwrote the deal at right around a $200,000 rehab.
Okay.
And we normally do a 10% contingency. We can talk more about it here a little later in the program, but there's certain times when it makes sense to potentially spend a little more money because you see the market continuing to grow and to appreciate. So we ended up being at 232.
Is that what happened here? Wasn't you guys were over budget, just realized, hey, we can do some higher end stuff to capture the higher end price?
Yeah, it was a little of both. We definitely dipped into our contingency budget because there was some other learnings on this property that we've never done before, like the pool. So that was definitely more expensive to rehab that because it was covered. It was winter when we bought it. We didn't know. And shame on me for trusting a sweet looking little old lady who ended up being maybe not so much. The pool was shot. And so we needed to spend more in rehab on the pool. But then there were definitely some very specific strategic decisions that we said, oh my gosh, the market continues to appreciate. Nothing's for sale. Let's put in a wet bar downstairs. Let's do some more landscaping. Let's do a little bit more concrete work and flat work than we were going to originally do. So combo of dipping into contingency and making some decisions of we think we can easily get that money back out.
Okay.
So 232 in rehab. When we purchased the property, which again, we saw it in December, committed, closed in January, and then of 2021, rented back through February of 2021. So we had a target ARV or sales price that we thought that we could sell it for $850,000. Our simple math normally on normal flips is for cosmetic properties where you're doing very minimal work and smaller properties, we need normally at least $100,000 in how much I buy it between how much I can sell it, and that generates a decent return. For traditional properties, we normally need it to be at least $150,000. And then in these larger suburban properties or places of town where you're selling a more expensive product, our deals end up typically being about a $200,000 spread of buying it for $500 and feeling good that we can sell it at $700, and that leaves profit. So just even at a $485 to an $850, there was tons of margin, even though we knew it was a significant six-figure rehab. We then saw, so again, we spent about another $30,000 in extra contingency / strategic decisions, but that's because we underwrote the deal at $850 and we felt super confident based on some comps that had sold that $925 was a very reasonable listing price, and there was nothing fixed up in this part of town. So that's the good thing is there's some great homes that maybe had been updated along the way or 10 years ago, but there was nothing that was fix and flip quality. So we ended up making a decision to list the property for $925,000.
And what month did you end up listing it in?
So we ended up listing it in June.
Okay.
Yep. We finished in May and we ended up listing it in early June.
Nice.
Yep.
And then what, I'm curious about the pool. Did you ever get a comp? Because I don't have much experience with pools.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever figure out how much value or how'd you comp a pool into this?
We didn't.
Or just said, screw it, we'll just price it, let the market do its thing?
That's exactly what we did. We just said, you know what? There were so few properties with pools that we couldn't get any good handle on what it might be worth. And I just looked at it on an apples to apples basis of there's a bunch of homes that are selling that are nice but not fix and flip updated, and they don't have pools, so I should theoretically be able to get more. And we can talk about it at the end. And that's, really what ended up happening is a couple moving from Texas bought the house and loved it, and the pool was a big deciding factor for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about, I know on your deal analyzer here, you guys can email us. It's on the website. Download it there. It's the same one that's on the main website for the fix and flip analysis. So go to the toolkit and grab that. You have 4 metrics on here: daily burn, ROI, profit, gross profit, and then your daily profit.
Yes.
Or dollars per day.
Yes.
Walk us through those very quickly, because I always think these are interesting, these metrics you have.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you mentioning those. The way that we make the decisions, because ideally, let's say we have multiple properties that we're trying to figure out which ones do we want to keep. And our 3 biggest metrics to us in order of importance are dollars per day. And what that is that's a metric that we kind of go off of most often. And that's how much net profit am I making divided by how many days do I have a property from purchase, rehab, and listing it and selling it on the back end. So kind of the example I always give is if I said, okay, Chris, do you want to do a fix and flip that makes you $58,000 or $42,000? What's your answer?
Well, it depends on how long it takes me and how much rehab there is.
That's right. So you're astute. Most people just quickly say, well, I want to make 58. Well, in that example, let's say the $42,000 property is just like you said, it's only $35,000 in rehab and it's a condo and I can get in and out in a month, versus the other one is a single family home. It's in Denver. I got to pull permits and it's going to take me 4 months. We actually typically pick, because of the term that we love, which is called velocity of money. How fast can I move our money? And we lean that way. So this one ended up being a very nice blend of still a significant dollar per day profit, also balanced with a really big project. So in this example, our net profit per day that we own the property was $930 a day, which is big. I mean, our average is around $475 to $525 per day. So this truly was the home run, and like I said, it's the most profitable project.
So you're almost at double your normal metric.
Almost double. And even if we sold it at the 850, which is our original ARV, we still would have been at $650 to $700 per day in dollars per day. So that's kind of our number one go or deal or no deal, if you will, on do we want to do a project. And then kind of sliding from right to left, the profit is just your pure net profit, which is how much do you buy it for, all of your rehab, all of your closing costs, all of your holding costs, everything you would ever pay out, and then what's your sales price point on the back end. So this one we netted just over $200,000 in true net profit. And for your listening audience, this does include kind of a hybrid of interest rates where our client was borrowing hard money, so they were paying 14%, and our in-house money right now we're actually a little lower. We're at 4% interest. So your viewing audience can look at this and realize that we paid all in almost $31,000 in holding costs. Had I bought this one myself, we would have put an extra $20,000 in profit in the deal. But it goes to show that even if you're borrowing at 14%, if it's still a good deal, you're still making really, really good money.
Yep. You got to understand the way don't get fazed by the higher interest rates, because even if you put no money down, higher interest rate, it's usually the most efficient use of capital.
Yeah, I mean, it totally is. And that kind of goes into our third metric, which is the ROI that I know your audience is familiar with, which stands for return on investment. Our spreadsheets are typically run as if it was obviously an all cash purchase and then selling on the back end. So it's not a leverage return or a cash on cash return, which would be much higher. But even in the all-in price that we invested, our rehab, and then what we sold it for, it's just over a 25% return on investment. Again, we want to be super upfront that this literally is the most profitable deal we've ever done. So our average is 12 to 14% ROI. So again, we've got our spreadsheet color coded for green is obviously very good. Orange in our world, because that's one of our company colors, is still good, but let's do a little deeper dive. And red means you probably shouldn't do it. These are all screaming green.
So something on the profit, since this was a partnership flip property.
Yep.
That profit goes 50-50 with you and the partner, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this example, our clients received their acquisition price back. So at closing, they got their $485 back. We each reimbursed ourselves the interest that we had paid. I got reimbursed the rehab money at closing. And then after that got to our true net profit. So in this example, the math is actually super simple. Is we had a total profit on the project after essentially paying ourselves back of $200,000. So each person got $100,000 in true net profit. And then in this example, the client actually wanted to learn how to do this, so we taught them along the way. So some people we work with, kind of the family who doesn't want to mess with it, we run everything and we give them status updates and they're happy. But we're starting to more and more work with people that want to learn. So we kind of blend our consulting with the partnership flip. Because again, I would have never seen this deal had they not called me. So to me, this is the biggest no-brainer. It's not untrue. But really our return is, if I had $232,000 in rehab, I had some staging, a little bit of holding costs, so let's say, keep the math simple. I put in $250,000 of my own money or my company money, and I made $100,000 in profit. That's significantly better ROI. So we love partnership flip for this reason, that I'm seeing deals we would not otherwise see. People learn, and it's kind of a win-win for both parties.
And when it came to doing like the rehab package, I know from when we did our course a while ago, you've had a series of, I forget what you call them, but you had 3 or 4 or 5 kind of packages used that are your spreadsheet that's fairly templated. You know what to use. Did the package change since you're doing a higher end flip for this property than a lot of your other ones, since it's a higher priced? How that your rehab package come to play on here?
Yeah, that's a great question. This actually really enabled us to create a sixth package.
Okay.
And you're right, we call them fixture and finish package. And so that's everything that you're putting in a property that is the design aesthetic that a buyer would care about. So when we flip our properties, we want to know up front, it takes kind of my personal taste out of it. So we have 5 different packages. So we have 2 kind of contemporary style packages. We've got a package for properties that are mid-century modern homes, because that has a very specific look. We've got a farmhouse package, so kind of think the Chip and Joanna Gaines HGTV farmhouse look. So we've got that. We've also got one for rentals. We don't want clients to kind of over improve their rental properties. And then this one, 100%, we said, oh crap, there's no way that, I mean, even listing in the $800,000 to $900,000 range, we needed nicer product in there. So we swapped out about 35% of what we typically would put in a property. And now we have a 6 package, and we call it our high-end package. So it's for properties that are normally about $800,000 and greater in finish levels. So you're putting in the highest level of quartz for your kitchen countertops. Backsplash, where we're normally for, a $750,000 product, you're in the $15 to $17 a square foot range. We put beautiful, marble mosaic tile in there that was like $28 a square foot. You're spending probably $2,500 more for nicer appliances, soaking tubs, the whole nine. So yeah, we updated it. So we now have kind of 6 packages, and we can kind of quickly expedite how we fix up these properties to, again, whatever the buying audience wants. It's not what's my opinion or my wife's opinion or whomever. It's key to just say, what does the market want? Give it to them.
And 2 things that was kind of step away from this deal that I think you're really good at. You and your company, Derek, is doing a job of removing yourself. And hey, who is the end client?
Yep.
And we want to make sure that we make him and her happy, but also just the level of systemization you have when you look at flips. Because I talk to a lot of people coming through the podcast and hey, they want to get into fix and flips, and I tell them, hey, I can give you some pointers.
Yeah.
I did one fix and flip. I made $22,000 or $24,000, but realized the what it would take to scale up of just the systems or processes, all that stuff. I was like, I don't have the interest in it. But you've done a great job on there, and to turn a fix and flip into a business, that's the type of stuff you need to have here. So I hope listeners are paying attention to it as people are trying to model what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is you are very systematized, which is essential for scale, and also just controlling your margin when it comes to doing properties. Hey, once you've got the system in place, it's a very marginal cost to do more deals, but it's getting all that stuff in place. So I hope people are realizing that and taking some notes to incorporate into their investments as well.
No, I really appreciate that. I mean, I've worked really hard to kind of get that in place, and we're very fortunate. We do have a team. I've got a project manager that helps run our projects, and we've got now 2 sales professionals that help find and acquire properties and then sell them on the back end. But to me, I think and I think probably your clientele probably sees the same thing, is I don't know if people value their time as money as much as they should. And to me, the perfect example is, you get up, you've got a flip going, you've got your interest clock ticking, and you say, okay, I need to buy tile today. So let's go to Floor and Decor. Let's wander around and pick tile out. And 4 hours later, you've spent in it half of a day, versus for us, we've got it all in a spreadsheet. We've got the picture of the tile, the SKU, the link, we order it online, and then our contractors go and pick it up. So, people spend so much time doing it when they could do one of 2 things. Either they could find more deals and be more profitable, or they could not work and do anything else that they want to do and run a really, really lucrative business, but have 20 hours a week to do whatever you want. So on average, I'm in a property only once a week for an hour. Again, I have a project manager, and he's in there typically 2 times a week for an hour. So we're managing projects roughly in 3 hours a week of in-person time, and probably an hour or so a week of computer time. So that's how we can do 5 or 6 at once and not be pulling our hair out. And there's people that are way, bigger than I am, that can run 20 at once. But to me, we have to have a system or we'd be out of our minds.
So on this property, what are other key takeaways on the returns, the rehab that you want to talk about before we move on, Derek?
Yeah, so I think for us, again, speed was key. We were able to, using our systems, not over improve. We went back and forth and said, do I really need a 7th bedroom, or do I create a second master suite upstairs? And then we just kind of looked at the market and said, no one else has this, so why should I spend more time or money creating something that I don't really think that we need. So we were able to, for construction time, actually get through a 5,000 square foot home in 3.5 months. So that was quick for us. Again, just not overdoing it. And then learning. We ended up, like I said, the pool was shot. It was wintertime. We listed the property in late May or early June, so it wasn't early enough to open the pool. And then we underestimated the time that it took vendors or pool service companies to come out and even just get us a bid. I mean, we were luckily in a multiple bidding situation and priced the house appropriately. We ended up actually just giving the client a pretty significant credit, because once we, again, it's also going back to tell your real estate professional to talk to the buyer's agent to figure out, well, what do they want? Instead of us trying to fix it, we found out that they were a pretty well-to-do couple from Texas, and they wanted to make their own probably dream pool. So we said, great, here's a credit, and you guys do what you want. And then we didn't have to mess with, using pool contractors, because there's not very many of them, and they were booked out. Even when we started calling people in March, they were booked out through August. So kind of these variables that we didn't foresee coming, even though we've done a ton of these, and just being, smart and sensible about areas that you're not an expert in.
Great takeaways. What else on this property, Derek, before we wrap up?
So, I think that we've kind of covered everything. Again, it's all about not falling in love with your comparable sales, and overestimating your product. So we decided there were, two different neighborhoods that were very similar in style. And when you're in a larger footprint of the suburbs, yes, you have a major road that divides the two, but there were a lot of comparable sales in this specific neighborhood that were between $750,000 and $850,000. So we thought, we can get at the top end of that. On the other side, for your audience that knows this part of town, Wadsworth was the main dividing line. There were a little bit bigger, within 100 or 200 square feet. But when you're at 5,000 square feet, 5,000 versus 5,100 square feet is not that different in our opinion. But they were selling for 1.1 to 1.3 million. So we thought there was some upside, but I still wanted to price it effectively. So we priced it at $925. We had 47 showings, and 5 offers, which is way more than I thought on this price point. Like, not everybody could have afforded that home. And so we just went with the buyer that we thought loved the house the most. And we're very fortunate that they paid $75,000 over asking to get to that $1 million price point. But even though we saw it coming, I think we were thinking we'd get $1 million, but we didn't want to price it there. Let the market take it wherever it goes. Don't say we spent more money or this is the nicest house in the block. It was, but let the market do its thing. And I think our philosophy is good things will happen. Yeah.
Well, Derek, this is a great deal to talk about. What, if people want to get a hold of you, just learn more, like, what's the best way to get a hold of you and your company?
Yeah, so our website is elevationinvest.com. So people can find us there and reach out. We're trying to put out, trying to follow your guys' lead, trying to put out as much content as we can. So on Instagram and Facebook, we're at Elevation Invest. We're trying to put out tons of free content. Again, we want to partner with people and work with people. And then people can also, call us and email us. We're right here in Metro Denver, so always looking to work with people. But the name of the company is Elevation, but the website is elevationinvest.com.
Awesome. Well, Derek, I appreciate you coming out and putting together the slide deck and walking through the property. I always find them fascinating because it's a totally different world to me. So thank you. If you guys want that, deal analyzer, go download off the website, reach out to Derek, check out that fix and flip series we did about a year and a half ago, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's on the website. Go to courses on there. Tons of information. Derek is a great resource. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back, Chris.